fun.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Fuller, we're live, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. I got no complaints. Zero zip.
Outstanding. Life on the plateau is good.
That's right. Now I am wearing the Rich Brown Spring Collection. If anybody would like to take advantage of that,
links in the show notes.
Hit the links in today's show notes, and you can take advantage of the Rich Brown Spring Collection.
It is a stylish spring look you got there, buddy.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm never as well polished and put together as you are, my friend. But
I've got to do at least some minor nod to the uptight reputation of my former employer. So,
what is? Do you know what the average, or what the? I guess the average might be the right word. Myers-Briggs type is for an FBI agent?
No, I don't. If I were to guess, I would say, and I've said it many, many times, is type A, anal retentive, win at all costs kind of folk. Because we hire the same person over and over and over again. Not a lot of, a lot of alpha personalities. I
agree with that.
Nature of the beast, right? I mean, I think law enforcement in general attracts that type. And
it used to be for, I don't know about the Bureau, but ESTJ was the average: extroverted, sensing, thinking, and judging. Very important. Will Rhodes is on. He is coin number 2269. Good morning, Rich and Dr. Fuller. If you want to find out becoming a coin member of our Self-Preservation Society is the right decision for you and your loved ones, please click the links in today's show notes. If you want to pick up some of Dr. Fuller's books, there they are behind him: Empathy for the Devil, during his tour as an interrogator of terrorists down at Guantanamo Bay, or his award-winning book, No Safe Alternatives, which talks about how we teach cops to kill, as well as, what's your other book, Dr. Fuller?
Painting Over Rust.
And that is your odyssey of the time in the Bureau, right?
It is indeed. If you're going that route with your career choice, or you know someone that is, you could not do better.
I agreed. Rudy is on. Good morning, Rudy. So glad to have you. Troy is on. This morning, fellas. AWS 848. He's an OG. Tony is on. Good morning, folks. Good morning, Tony. Glad to have you on.
Not a lot of Troys running around. I'm a Troy. That's what the T stands for in Troy, and my son is as well. So, we got a little cabal going here.
Does that mean warrior or something like that?
Well, it means city that doesn't know enough to leave a hollowed out wooden horse outside the gates. That's.
I've always said, speaking of that, I think it was Laocoon who was the one that warned of bringing that horse in, the Trojan horse in. And him and his sons, I think they sent off to the serpents to be devoured for even saying such a thing, which is insane.
Yeah, sign of the times.
You're very succinct this morning, Dr. Fuller. John is on from Yukon, Oklahoma. Good morning, John. Guys, please like and hit that share notes. Dr. Fuller and I are going to meander a little bit this morning, but we're going to kind of start it off with something you want to talk about, the signal chat debacle. Take it wherever you like, sir.
Yeah, so for those that haven't been paying attention, like me, avoid the news as much as they can, we've got a big to-do being made about war plans being texted by the Secretary of Defense and other players in the current administration, and inadvertently including a journalist. And so that's playing out in the media of late. And I'm, full disclosure, I'm not going to pretend to know all the nuances and ins and outs of this conversation. That largely stems from my general distrust of media these days. So I have a hard time, coming down on one side or the other. But it occurs to me that this is just emblematic of just sort of a general lackadaisical attitude about classified material at the highest levels of our government. And it goes back a ways, and before anybody gets on their high horse, it's both sides of the aisle, folks. Mm-hmm. It's both sides of the aisle. I mean, it started out with private server in a closet by a former senator who'd done 8 years as the first lady, who'd done, I don't know how many years as the first lady of Arkansas, a lawyer, secretary.
They knew better, I think is what you're getting at.
And this is my point. You know better, right? Mm-hmm. But you just have sort of a general attitude of, I'm too, that's for the peasantry. And then we go on to a president or former president that's storing stuff in a closet, another former president or a current president who's storing stuff in a garage next to his Corvette. Now we've got people that are throwing, classified information around on an unclassified system. And I know you know these things, Rich, because you've been read into programs and TSSCI and what have you. But for those who have never had that experience, there are a lot of rules around classified materials. Right? If you're being allowed to look at classified information, you're being given a security clearance, you're given a full briefing about, look, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. And it has the force of law behind it. Okay, so you screw this up and you can be prosecuted for this. And we do it all the time. People get prosecuted for mishandling classified information all the time. And there are levels of classification. So something can be, law enforcement only. We saw that a lot in the FBI. So we would pass it out to our law enforcement partners, but we wouldn't give it to the media. And then it can go up from there to, you've got TS, top secret. You've got secret, which is a little bit below that. You've got TS, SCI. Long-term viewers of the show will have heard you and I throw that term around quite a bit. That's top secret, special compartmentalized information. So that's a subset in the Venn diagram of classified information. It's a subset of TS. So it's top secret, but it's also really super ninja top secret. Then within the top secret, you have all kinds of these categories. You've got top secret communications. You've got top secret information derived from source material. And we don't really need to get into all that. But suffice to say, there's all kinds of little tiny subsets in there. And you can be given 1, 2, 5, none, however it is, based on your needs, right? Your needs to know the information in order to do the job you're doing. And you can be let in while you're doing this job, and then you're read out. So you're read a whole list of riot acts saying what you can and can't do now that you are leaving the program, now that you will no longer be given the keys to the kingdom, as it were. And there's a reason for this, right? Because the information itself is secret, but because of what it contains. But beyond that, how we got that information oftentimes can be derived from what the information is. Like if I know Rich Brown's top secret bank account, checking account number, one of his dozens of bank accounts that he has in the Cayman Islands and Swiss bank accounts. If I know that, and Rich finds out that I know that, he knows that not only does he know I know it, and he can take steps to fix that, but he also can look to his own backyard and say, well, who could have given him that information? How could he have come by that information? Well, maybe he got it by diving my dumpsters. I never talked about it online, so he didn't get it by hacking my computer. But there's 3 of us in my house that know that number, that have access to that number. So, and I know it wasn't me, so it had to either been these other 2 people, or we've done a poor job securing our trash, right? So he can start to limit my access points. And in severe cases, he can say, no, it was that one person that had that information that could pass it on, and he can imprison or execute that person if he's a nation state actor. And we've had that happen. Aldrich Ames was a classic example. So there are real world impacts to this, not only from a defensive position for our opponents, but also they can go proactive and close down our sources. And, oh, by the way, maybe execute people in the process.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't just get willy-nilly with this stuff. And yet we're seeing repeatedly these people do that. Now, there will be an argument say, look, you're in this position, you can be the declassifying authority, right? Because there's a person in the chain of command that can declassify things. And typically, if I were to create a document and I wanted it classified, I could classify it at X level. And you put a time limit on it. So it's going to be classified at this level for 50 years, right? And boom, that's the way it is. Nobody below me in the chain of command can change that. Nobody parallel to me in the chain of command can change that. There are only people above me in particular positions who have the authorization to declassify that material. Okay? And there is a process for this. And you know all this, Rich. I know that. This is for the edification of the audience member. So there's a process for declassification. You simply can't say, I have willed it so, and thus it shall be. Not how it works. Right? Even the president has to say, well, this is now declassified. Now, he doesn't have to tell a ton of people, but it has to be recorded that, yes, this has been declassified. You can't just say, I've got this secret stuff. Oh, I got caught with it. Oh, no, I declassified it. That's not how it works for you and I. Okay. Now, apparently, it is how it works for some political figures. And we can have that debate all day long if you want to. My point to all this is we're getting a little bit too flippant with this information.
Mm-hmm.
And now what I'm hearing is that in the latest case, you've got people on the right who are in the administration right now. There's no way around it, folks. You mishandled classified information, at least based on the information that's out in the public sphere right now. That is what we like to call in the profession probable cause, right? It's certainly an indicator that perhaps an investigation should be launched, right? What happened here? There's smoke. Let's go see if there's fire, right? That's how these things work. It doesn't sound as though that's what's going to happen. No. And I don't like seeing either side pull that stunt, but I particularly don't like the side that I'm mostly sympathetic towards pull that stunt.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't tell me how we're a nation of laws and then only administer the laws we like.
Yeah.
Look, I get it. People like the current Secretary of Defense. I happen to like his leadership style, right? I like the fact that he's out there doing push-ups with the troops. Okay. And that comes from my time in the military. You're in the same boat I am there. But if you screw up, you get spanked.
That's right.
How many people you know over your course of your career that you liked quite a bit, or good people, good leaders, solid people that screwed up and got spanked? And you don't go, well, he's a good dude. We can't, he got a DUI, but he's a well-meaning fella. Look, I'm sorry, you knew the rules.
You get hammered. Yeah.
You get hammered.
Now, there's different ways of hammering people in the government. Like we had. I've written up page 11s for people that were top performers, but they screwed up, and I kept it in my desk. And it was kind of an unofficial probation. Like, look, this is going to go in your record book, or you're going to keep your nose clean for 90 days. And then me and you will have a burning ceremony for this page 11. Or I give them what they call a NIPLOC, a non-punitive letter of caution. And that thing is something that can never be used against them to hurt them on a fitness report, but yet they have been, punished.
They've been told.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's different ways without firing somebody, especially for something like this, because when I look at it, it's like F-18 strike package is going to hit Yemen. It doesn't tell me what F-18 strike package. It doesn't tell me where the strike package is. It doesn't tell me where the planes are coming from. So, but it was a leak. Let's call it what it is. But was any F-18 pilot put at risk for that? I would say probably not. But what are your thoughts on that? Am I belittling it or no?
I think we're making excuses at that point.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then it shouldn't have been classified. Right. And that's the deal. You've enforced laws that you don't agree with. You've arrested people for things and I've done it. I've arrested somebody before and just said, this is wrong. This shouldn't happen. And I've told not the defense. I told the prosecutors the same thing, told my bosses the same thing, but that didn't mean I didn't put handcuffs on the guy.
Correct.
And in this particular case, and in previous cases as well, all right. I mean, this didn't happen in a vacuum. Okay. I think it's just sort of, we're on that arch, and this is just the next step up that arch. Apparently what they're saying now is, well, the Secretary of Defense declassified it by putting it on an unclassified system. That's another thing, right? You have classified computer networks and you have unclassified computer networks.
SIPRnet, Snipper, there are all kinds of stuff
you got
out
all
there.
Kinds of these crazy things. There's so many acronyms I couldn't keep them straight when I was in the Bureau.
Right.
Certainly don't keep them straight now.
And for those that don't know, when you take your combined access card, CAC card, you got a chip in it. I plug it into the computer and then I enter in my code. Now everybody knows coming from that IP is me. It's got two-factor authentication in the card and my code. And then I'm sending stuff on the secure net. When you're on the Signal chat, which is a off-the-shelf app you can go download right now. And this is the problem I have with this. A good friend of mine who's working with a 3-letter agency right now as a contractor, he's like, "Hey, Rich, are you on Signal?" I'm like, "No, I don't think it's secure enough." He goes, "Yeah, but that's everybody at this agency is using, man." And I'm like, I prefer Wire, and I can give you a long dissertation why Wire is better than Signal. But I won't be getting on Signal. And that was like a month ago. And everybody's like, "Hey, look, when I got here, they told me Signal is what I was supposed to use." And I loaded it onto my phone and started using it. I'm like, that's banana land. Who the hell owns Signal? And you know who who's the CEO, the chairman of the board of Signal?
guessing he lives on the other side of the Pacific.
Nope. It's
No?
it's the woman that runs NPR, I believe.
Oh, no kidding. Good for her.
Yeah, but it's like, what's her bias at? And she can get access to that shit. Come on, man. This is ridiculous.
And if you don't think that nation state actors are trying and have succeeded in cracking those things, you're just fooling yourself. Do you think the CIA isn't trying to crack the Chinese version of Signal? Do you think it hasn't already happened, that the NSA doesn't have the keys to all those kingdoms? Of course they do. So what I was saying originally is it's an unclassified system. Therefore, by law, you cannot put classified communications on a unclassified system. That's any electronic system.
Right.
All right. The FBI has its own internal network. So only for the FBI. It only exists in FBI space. All the terminals are locked up in FBI space. We used to have to pull our hard drives out every night and put them in the safe when I was in the bureau.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we had these detachable hard drives with a lock. You had to yank them out, take them back, throw them in the safe before you went home. Every night. And that was just for TS stuff. That wasn't for the really high-end stuff. So I got to believe that people that exist at that level know better. And they know that saying, well, because I put it on the unclassified system, I automatically declassified it. Yeah, you did, except you didn't go through the process, right? And look, you don't like the process. Okay, change the process, right? Change the rules. But don't go out there and bang some poor E4 for mishandling classified information and put him in Leavenworth and then turn around and pull some stunt like this. Because to me, all you're doing is reinforcing the idea that there are two levels of law in this country.
That's right.
There's the laws for me and there's the laws for thee. And never the twain shall meet. It's right up there with walls don't work on countries, but they work around my house in, San Francisco. They work, right. I find this very, very hypocritical and disingenuous. And look, conduct the investigation. If at the end of the investigation you say X is what happened, then whoever's in that guy's chain of command, the next step up, makes a decision as to what's going to happen, right? Because they're going to make a recommendation to I would assume, the Department of Justice. And Pam Bondi is going to say, yay, we're going to prosecute. Nay, we're not going to prosecute, right? And then the president can come down and he can have their conversation. I mean, look, none of us expect that under any circumstances that the Secretary of Defense is going to go to prison for this.
Right.
Not going to happen. Okay. What I object to is they're not even doing an investigation. They're just not. And now the reporter has kind of claimed the moral high ground. He's like, hey, I didn't put this out there. I had all this information. I didn't put it out there until you started calling me an asshole.
Right.
And once you started throwing rocks at me, I'm like, okay, I'm the bad guy. Watch this.
Exactly.
And now instead of attacking what happened or just coming out and saying, hey, look, we screwed up. We talked to the guy, we've got this contained, but it was an error. Mea culpa. I have respect for that because people make mistakes, right? We all get that. It's how you fix the mistake. But instead, you start the ad hominem attacks. Oh, this so-called journalist, and he's a discredited source, and this and that. Yeah, but he's got the documentation. You can call him a jerk all you want. You can tell him, he beats his cat. Okay, but look, he's got what you said, and we're playing this game where you got caught by your girlfriend cheating, and you're yelling at her for checking on your phone. Well, you looked at my phone,
Right, exactly.
If we're ignoring the problem, and it really, really gets under my skin when we do that because it's disingenuous. It's beneath us. It's beneath the position that you're in. You got to be able to come out and say, I made a mistake.
I 100% agree with you.
Ooh.
And again, there's ways to handle it if you like the guy. I mean, but there needs to be some accountability. Michael says, I was expecting to hear that an entrenched bureaucrat added the journalist credentials into the chat to discredit the administration. Again, never ascribed to malice. What could be explained by competence or something like that.
Yeah.
Eric says, good morning, gentlemen. Nice to be able to hop on. Work schedule has been crazy lately. I've been missing my AWS family. Well, we have missed you, my dear friend. Guile is on from the Philippines. Good morning. Ted is on. Eric says, I have been spanked. Yes, as I have too. I was held accountable and reduced in rank. And you know what I did? I continued to march and got it all reinstated. So there you go. Now, Eric says, how does Wire compare to Apple's iMessage encryption? Apple's not bad, but again, it's on an Apple server. The reason I prefer Wire, there's several reasons, but the quick answer is it's on Swiss servers. It's a Swiss company. They don't, subpoena power. The Swiss can tell them to pound sand, and it's end-to-end encrypted. Signal is the two main folks at Signal, besides Scott, I think, who invented it, is Catherine Mayer, who's the CEO of NPR, very left biased woman. It's very clear from the testimony she's given lately and the things she's tweeted, as well as Meredith Whittaker. So you got two leftists at the top of Signal. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say, like Michael Gentili did, that this could have been some sort of release, intentional release to harm. But that's not what happened. So I think the fact that the government is using, create your own damn Signals app. Come on, man. I mean, are you serious? If this is what we want to do, then why in God's name? Well, it's easy, and that's herein lies the problem.
No, it's absolutely true, because they can do it. They could do it. Mm-hmm. They pass out phones to government employees. Should encrypt them right off the bat. We used to have people with satellite encrypted cell phones. They were bricks. They were big. I'm sure they're smaller now, but they were it was a PGP encryption that were on there. I mean, it was pretty insane encryption levels, and then they encourage you to use it for regular stuff. And I can understand that, because when there's lots of volume out there, it makes it harder for anybody to cherry pick which is the one we want to crack. So.
Yeah, I think I like Pete Hegseth as well. I like the new SecDef. I think he's fantastic for the role for a litany of reasons. However, his handling of this, whether he added or who shot John, I don't know, but an investigation should be conducted to find out how that leak occurred, and then we'll let the decision makers decide what's appropriate next steps after that. I think you and I would violently agree on that point. But I don't like the fact that he got out there and tried to discredit the journalist, saying it was a bunch of BS, when I think he probably knew damn well. And like you said, so that led him to go, oh, really? Check this out. Here's screenshots. That was a bad call. Whoever gave him the advice this is the way you handle it, sir. When you get off the plane, you're just going to say that, no, that was a stupid move, and that person needs to be removed from that position of advising him.
Hegseth did time as a journalist himself, right?
Bingo.
So he should. I mean, would it be that difficult to send somebody out to the guy and say, "Look, we need you to hold this. There's reasons for this, but people are going to get hurt. We will give you this interview, or we will pay you in the coin of a journalist, right? Let's have a quid pro quo. Do the right thing. Yes, it will save us. I will get out there and I will eat this. I will do my piece, and then move on. Because right now you've just created another bone of contention, right? Another place where the left and the right can fight with each other over, oh, he needs to go to prison, and of course we're forgetting that, hey, the last president probably should have gotten, buckled. I would have gotten buckled up. You would have gotten buckled up. Right? Oh yeah. So, okay. Do I think you should go out and buckle up Joe Biden for, storing this stuff back there? I don't know. I mean, did he actually pick the boxes up and put them in his garage?
No.
Yeah. You guys having a hard time picking up his slippers. So, there's a whole lot you could go and look at, but to just say, well, we're not going to look at it because he's old. I just find that just drives me bonkers. And we can go on and on about this on both sides of the aisle, right? But somebody should just stand up and say, look, we deal with a huge volume of this stuff. This was a bad move. I don't know how this guy got here. We're doing an internal investigation to figure out how we screwed up and got his phone number in here, and just mea culpa it, right? I mean, I remember when Janet Reno was the attorney general. And
was Waco the devil? Happened. I'm sorry.
and Waco happened. And I was stunned because, she was not exactly my favorite person, but she got up and said, look, the buck stops with me. This is on me. I take responsibility for this. And I was just like, what just happened? A politician just said, I take responsibility. Well, that was odd. And it was not, I didn't expect it from her. And what ended up happening to her because of it?
Yeah, two things, jack and squat.
Right. Nothing. So if you're avoiding taking responsibility for this, why? Why? I mean, it's out there. Yeah. Well, Alan Kelly has a good point. Use water to put out a fire early and don't throw gas on it.
But the other thing is, the best disinfectant is sunlight. It's not counter accusations. So, Pete should have said, hey, I got I don't know who would even investigate that. I guess the Bureau. I don't know who the appropriate agency would be. But however, hey, I've ordered a complete accountability of this. Let's look at where it happened. It could have been me. It could have been one of my staffers. I'm not sure, but we're gonna take a look at this. And then you can do. There was one case where one of my gunnies. I was on an inspection team, and I went down there, and as a chief warrant officer, I was going to find this major. I was the guy. I was going to find him non-mission capable and get him relieved. And he knew that, right? So one of my gunnies stepped on his crank during this investigation. And so the major calls me, hey, Chief Warrant Officer, is it true that your gunny did this and this? He took some records out of a secure facility, took them back to the hotel. There was a bomb threat. It's a long story. He was trying to do the right thing. I got to get this done. I got a deadline, bomb threat. Everybody's got to leave. I only need to screen 10 books. I'll take them to the hotel, get it done, write up my report. But by taking those books out of the secured facility,
can't do that.
Well, he was a stud, and I did not want to see this guy go down. I'm like, Roger that, sir. Let me look into it. So I bang out a non-punitive letter of caution. Have him come over to see me that night at the hotel. Had my master gunnery sergeant there. We gave him the nip lock, and the next day, I'm like, hey, Major, I looked into it, sir. Here's the deal. He's been counseled, given a non-punitive letter of caution. He's going to be on the next flight out of here. Sorry about this. Like, wait a minute. I want to see this guy hang. I'm like, no can do, sir. That'd be double jeopardy. He's already. And so he calls the colonel. The colonel's like, you don't, the executive officer calls me, Lieutenant Colonel's like, you can't issue non-punitive letters of caution as the chief warrant. So too late, sir. Already done it. So you need to do something to me, do it to me.
Yep.
Nothing happened. But my point is, there's a million ways to skin this cat other than make counter accusations.
No, you're absolutely right. I had a very similar incident myself very early in my very first company command. One of my young stud E5s. Now, this is EOD, right? So these guys have been through 9 months of school at a minimum, and we're over in Egypt. And I've just taken command. And like a week later, one of my E5s, and E5 is about the lowest rank you'll see with an EOD badge back then.
Oh, yeah.
Of the way is that you can enlist and go straight in now, but back then you had to have a whole tour under your belt. Yeah, you can enlist. Yeah,
you are freaking kidding me.
Yeah, so you see like E3s with an EOD crab, which is mind blowing to me. But whatever. So he's an E5, and so you see E5s pushing brooms and mops and stuff in EOD units. It was weird coming from an infantry background. See an E5. Yeah. So anyhow. He's I was at North Camp, which is up near the Gaza Strip. He was down at South Camp, which is down at the southern tip of the Sinai, a few hundred kilometers away. And there was a dive unit there. We had some Army salvage divers. And there was only a few of them. There was only a few of us. So there's kind of this elite perception. We're the special guys, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're sitting around one night and they're drinking. And they get a little tanked up. And they decide to streak. This is a long story, but it's a very good one. So they go streaking around the post wearing nothing but a green wool sock.
Okay? That's appropriate,
right? Yeah, that's what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
back in the day, anyway.
Back in the day, and the compound was guarded by rotating infantry units. They would come in for 6 months, and then there were the permanent party folks. We were the permanent party folks, so we were there for a year. The guys on the gates and the fence line were 6-month guys, and it happened to be the 82nd Airborne, which is an organization that takes itself very seriously. And so they streak a couple of the guard towers, and the call goes out, hey, there's a bunch of guys out here running around naked. E3 up in a tower. He thinks it's funny at 2 a.m. Well, then they streak the front gate, and that's where the sergeant of the guard is. Well, he already knows it's coming. So he's called the QRF, right? The Quick Reaction Force, who are just a bunch of guys. That's like a SWAT team sitting on their go bags, right? Just waiting for something to happen. So hut. They all load up in the deuce and a half. They go haul into the front gate. My guy and the dive guys go streaking by right about the time as the deuce and a half comes around the corner. And they are like deer in the headlights. They all stop, look, crap. The sergeant of the guards yelling at them, stop, and then the QRF pours out of the truck. All right. So now the chase is on, right? Naked dude, guys in full kit, chasing each other everywhere. And when it's all said and done, and there's some of the stories of how guys got away were hysterical, but 2 guys get caught. One of them's my guy, and he's new in country. Well, one of the things that happens when you're new in country is everybody gets Sadiqi's revenge, right? Montezuma's revenge, right? Well, he gets like open field tackled by one of the QRF. And when he does, his lower intestine goes high order. Gets him, gets it all over the guard. They drag him. So now they're not happy. They drag him, throw him in the deuce, and have to take him back. I get a call the next morning. Well, actually, his supervising NCO in E6 gets the call, and I hear him in the other room go, "No way! What? No, really? What?" So he's laughing. And he comes in with the first sergeant. He's like, "Sir, you're just not going to believe this." And so he tells me the story, and now we're all just cracking up, right? Just laughing. And of course, my first sergeant, "This is a very shitty situation, sir. He soiled the reputation of the unit. We're having a blast." And I look at him, we're in tears in my eyes. I say, we got to UCMJ him, right? And they're like, "Oh yeah, we know." Well, the battalion commander had a
UCMJ, for those that don't know, Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Right. So
he's going to do Article 15 on it.
Right. He's got to get punished. Yeah. But I look at the battalion policies. The battalion commander has a policy letter out that says he reserves the right for UCMJ action on all alcohol-related incidents.
Yeah, but
I'm a new guy. I'm new enough that I can say, maybe I haven't read this yet. So I send the E6 down to get him and drag him back up real fast. So he jumps on a little French Osprey, flies down there, picks the guy up, flies back. And the next day, I have the E6 come in. I talk to him. I said, "Look, this is how this is going to go. I'm going to do this and this and this. I'm going to yell at you more than I'm going to yell at him so that he understands there's an impact." This is to me, it's a training moment, right? Let's 100%. Make this E5 a better NCO.
Yep.
But he's going to have to go through the flames to get there. But I didn't want him to get a field grade. Now, they have field and company grade and summary Article 15s in the Marine Corps.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Same thing. The colonel reserves a right, the battalion commander.
Okay. So summary grade is it's the lowest level. And it's doesn't go anywhere. It stays in the unit. You leave the unit, it gets shredded. No big deal. Company grade is the next level up, and that's left to the company commander. In this case, me. And there are certain penalty levels that you can ascribe based on where we are in this chain. So summary is very low level punishments. Company grade is a little bit higher. Field grade, that at the time was a career ender.
Oh yeah.
For an E5, especially, you're done. So I didn't want that to happen. And the battalion commander at the time was on a Nile River cruise for a week. So he was out of pocket. And we had this very nice, motherly, matronly female 04 XO who was the acting battalion commander. All right. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to company grade this guy. I got to get it done fast. So I talked to the adjutant. I said, "Hey, I got a UCMJ coming. I need it done quick." Roger that. Captain's council, right? So
I was going to say, and he didn't say, "Well, we need to run this by the XO."
I said, I said, "I'll talk to the battalion commander," but yeah. And I usually wore sterile BDUs when I was in the Army. I just, because I had so much crap. And, not unlike the Marine Corps, the Army sews it all on there.
Oh, yeah.
But I had one uniform that was all jigged up, right? So I had my CIB, my jump wings, my air assault wings, my EOD badge, my range tab, my combat. I had all that crap on. So I put that one on, and I go down to the battalion. I call the battalion commander, say, "Ma'am, I need to come and talk to you." Okay. So I go down there, and I put on my steamed, pissed off look. This is a logistics battalion, right? This is a support battalion. Not a lot of infantry guys.
Not a lot of CIBs in there.
Right. Not a lot of former infantry guys there.
No.
So there's a stereotype around that. And I generally didn't fit that stereotype, but it was convenient to have. So I walk into her office, and all of a sudden it's not TC, it's Captain Fuller, and he's pissed. "Ma'am, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so furious. This is he did this, and I can't have it. We're going to do this." And she's like leaning back in her seat, right? Like, "Oh, Jesus, he's pissed." And I said, "Man, I got a plan. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to company grade Article 15. I'm going to this, that, that." I just kind of slipped that in there. And she's just like, "Okay, Captain, sounds like you got a handle on this. Good for you. Roger out. You're good. Thank you, ma'am." Beat feet out of there. Read him the riot act, chewed out my E6, said, "You're going to punish him. He's your responsibility, blah, 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 blah." Threw them out, signed the paperwork, ran it over to the agent, had it inside, got it filed, got it off and gone. 2 days later, battalion commander comes back, looks through what happened while I was gone, and sees this happens. Calls up Captain Fuller, "Get in my office right freaking now." So I beat feet over there. "Sir," I put on my best. "Can I help you?" And he's like, "Hey, by policy, that should be me, not you." "Oh my God, sir." Pearls clutched.
I hope I haven't done anything untoward.
Have I overstepped? And I said, "Well, sir, I was really upset about it. I just really wanted to get this done fast. Because justice delayed is justice denied. I didn't want to send the wrong message. I'm a new commander. I wanted to make sure everybody knew I wasn't screwing around. Yada yada yada." And so he's got this little grin on his face because he knows damn good and well what I did. Right? It's not his first time on the block. But like you, double jeopardy is attached. You can't come and get him now.
Nope.
And I just saved his career. It was so funny too, because that E5 was furious at the time, just furious, just didn't it thought all the injustice of it all. Last time I talked to him, he was a E03 in the Navy.
Damn.
Yeah, he'd gotten out, got a degree, got back in, and was like, that was genius. He says, I really appreciate that. You really saved me, you know, yada, yada.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old parable about the little bird flying south for the winter. Do you know this one?
I'm not sure I do.
So there's a bird flying south of the winter. I hope I don't muck it up. And he's late, right? All the other birds have gone. So as he's flying, he's trying to get out of the north, and the weather changes and it freezes in midair, and he crashes to the ground. And he's laying there on the ground, frozen and shivering, and you can see the light dimming, and he's about to die, you know. And a cow comes along and shits all over him. Big, hot, steamy pile of cow poop just all over him. He's like, man, insult to injury. Here I am dying, and all this. Wait a minute, I'm warm now. I can move my wings. This is great. And he stays there in this cocoon of poop with his head sticking out. He eats a little bug every now and then. It's like, okay, I think I can do this. I might be able to make it. And meanwhile, here comes this cat on a warm, sunny day, and the cat sees the bird and laying in the poop, and he starts, oh, Mr. Bird, Mr. Cat's going to get me out of here. He's clawing around, gets the bird out, and eats him whole. So the moral of the story is, not everybody that craps on you is your enemy, and not everybody digs you out of a hole is your friend. And so I like that parable because it's the same thing. You know, I was on the tractor. I had a very similar instance. I had a tractor. I'm on the tractor on the farm one day, and I get I reach in my overall pocket, and the phone's vibrating. I'm like, hello. He's like, is this Chief Warrant Officer Brown? I'm like, this has been like, I've been retired now for like 8 years. I'm like, I used to be. Who's this? He's like, Chief Warrant Officer Brown. I'm like, oh no, what is this? He's like, this is Gunnery Sergeant Martinez. Sir, I didn't know it at the time, but you were taking care of me. When he was a staff sergeant, he had stepped on his crank pretty hard, and just like, you know, he was a good Marine, hell of an athlete. He had played on the All Marine softball team, which is pretty heady stuff, and very, very accomplished guy, but he had a pretty significant screw up. And I confined his ass to base and did some other thing, made him go to counseling and yada, yada, yada. But it didn't go in the fit report. And he's like, man, I hated your guts. I thought, but now I've been promoted to gunnery sergeant. I got my family back together. You know, I realized you saved me. It's the same thing. Yeah. You know, so I think Dr. Fuller and I have gone down this road and only to say there needs to be accountability, some form of accountability and investigation relative to the signal leak, because we can't do what the other side has done, which is just, oh, the hammers we took to the laptops and the Blackberries and the server that was holding classified information being ran by someone without a clearance in a basement somewhere. Like, I'm speaking, of course, what Hillary Clinton did. We cannot do that. That's not what the right does.
You're right. You're absolutely correct. And at least it shouldn't be. And
Right.
Oh, by the way, it's not as though people are escaping accountability with all this.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're starting a narrative here. Yes, you're cutting them a little bit of a slack here, in that you're not ending their career. But one of two things is going to happen, right? They're going to correct the behavior, which is what you want, and they're going to go off and do the right thing from that time forth, or they're going to screw it up again. Yeah, and you now have paperwork. You have a previous incident.
You got a 2-shot group.
Right. You can now
make a dope adjustment on that. Big time.
Exactly. So one of two things is going to happen. They're going to straighten out and fly right, or they're not. And if they don't, now you've built that narrative and said, look, last time we didn't get ugly about this. Apparently it didn't get through to you. Mm-hmm. You know, you burned your one, second chance, pal. And here we are having this conversation a second time.
Because here's the deal. We're human beings. We're gonna make mistakes, which is why I said, because I think that, we're talking about data points, but for data points to become evidence, they need to be contextualized, in my opinion. So this is a data point to contextualize it. And this is why I don't think the punishment should be people being fired and carted off to prison is because the information that did come out should never have come out. Got it. However, the context of the thing, it's VMFA-1 flying off the Nimitz at 0735. They're going to refuel in the air at grid coordinate, whatever. They're going to hit the initial attack point at this grid point, and they're going to roll in with these ordnance at this location. There was none of that. It was very, really, F-18s, I got it. Attacking something, Yemen, got it. It wasn't where, when. There was a lot of missing pieces for it to be the sort of evidence that leads to somebody having their head in a noose, but it is enough to warrant something.
Right. And for me, all of that is that context comes into play in the penalty phase.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be a bar to the investigation. And maybe this is a nuance that's lost on some folks.
Mm-hmm.
We have a reason to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And investigation seems to be oftentimes a dirty word. Oh my God, it's
right.
investigation. Because a lot of times people just convict in their heads based off of that one word. Truth of the matter is, investigation just finds out what happened.
Yeah.
And if you decide that, yes, there's, he's guilty of mishandling classified information, which from the outside looking in right now, based on the information we have, I don't think anybody can argue there was not mishandling of classified information. Mm-hmm. So you do the investigation and you give it to the convening authority, whoever this person is, that's going to, or people are that are going to make a decision as to penalty. That's when context really becomes important.
Amen.
That's when you say, you mishandled classified information that was not substantively a problem, right? You didn't, we didn't just
aircraft or pilots kind of thing.
Right. We didn't just lose 3 F-18s because of what you did.
Now, if we did,
right,
people do need to go.
But again, that comes in the penalty phase, not in the decision to investigate phase. We're over the line for the decision to investigate.
Yep.
And I find it very disingenuous when we start saying things like, well, there's context, so we shouldn't investigate. We did that to Biden, right?
I know.
Let me ask you. He's an old guy.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. Yeah, no. Let me ask you, have you ever investigated as an FBI agent other law enforcement officers or agencies?
Yes, both good and bad.
And how were you often perceived? Did you see both sides of it, where they don't want you there and then they welcome you?
Yeah, well, yes, I saw it. But of course, most people, when the FBI comes knocking on an investigation like that, everyone realizes, oh shit. Mm-hmm. Right now, I was in Vermont for most of the time when I was doing that sort of thing. Everybody knew everybody. Mm-hmm. Right? It's no different than if the ATF guy that lives 2 doors down from you in Tennessee goes in and starts talking to the local police department in your town. They're going to know each other, right? So when I'd come knocking, they all knew me. Mm-hmm. But now I'm showing up as an FBI agent. So they knew me. They knew that I wasn't necessarily going to just be an ass when I was there. But they also knew that, look, this is serious because it's not just TC hanging out. The FBI is here.
And I'm going to go wherever the evidence takes me.
Right. And, look, this isn't me that did this, buddy. I'm just looking up the facts. You did this, whatever it was that was done. Now, it's interesting. The last investigation I did in Vermont was a officer-involved shooting. It was a Border Patrol agent took a shot at a car that tried to run him down in the middle of the night out in the countryside. And then, of course, he puts out over the radio, shots fired. And, Border Patrol guys, they're out in the pucker brush, right? I mean, they're out there by themselves. I got to give them credit for that. Well, what happens, right? Officer-involved shooting, everybody's coming. Well, one of his Border Patrol buddies is hauling out there. And, of course, it's all dirt roads and it's muddy and nasty. And he flips his SUV because he's going, 90 on a road that he should be doing about 30 on. Takes a corner, rolls the SUV. So he gets a little hurt. Car gets destroyed. But now it's a big deal. And there's no, we don't do that. And, oh, by the way, the car that he put rounds into turned around and went back across the border. Oh, shit. It was one of those, there are many uncontrolled border crossings up there. Mm-hmm. Some of them are just like neighborhood roads, right? They go into a neighborhood in Canada and they come out in a neighborhood in Vermont. It's bizarre. There's like rocks in the way. Well, of course, people just move the rock. So the car takes off. So I get up there, and this all happens maybe 2 a.m. I get up there at, I don't know, maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30, because, I can't be getting out of bed too early. I got to get my eggs and bacon.
Amen, brother.
Truth of the matter is I got to the office and I'm like, hey, we just got a call. So nobody called us until 7 hours later. So I get up there and I go in, I see the station chief guy, whatever he's called. And I said, hey, what happened? He tells me, so, okay, where's the guy? Oh, he's out there at his desk. Really? Okay. Where's the gun? Oh, he's wearing it.
What?
What?
I remember you telling me the story. And I was just shocked the first time.
Yeah. And so I get him in there and I'm like, get that, take the holster off, put it over here. And now that's when their whole demeanor changed. Now they're like, because these guys didn't know me. We weren't buddies because they were 35 miles away. And now they're thinking, oh, he's here to hang my guy. And I had to have a very pointed conversation with the director of that particular facility by saying, no, I'm not here to hang your guy. I mean, look, if he's going to get hung, he's going to get hung. So, but he's said he shot into a car that tried to run him over. That sounds justified to me. But here's the deal. That car got away. And what to say he didn't go right to the first QPP post he could find, Quebec Provincial Police. Of course, you have to say that in French. And tell them, hey, I was just driving along minding my own business and some uniformed American shot me over the border and hit my cousin in the kidney.
Like that.
Right. And now my cousin is bleeding out and has died in the car while I was trying to get him to emergency medical. And again, pearls clutched. What have I done to deserve this horrid fate? I said, dude, you don't know what narrative is being spun on the other side. You don't know what happened. So we have got to document this. And I mean, like right now. And then we had to have the conversation about how many rounds he fired and how many are in the gun. And hey, you're missing like 5 extra rounds here. I told you this part. Have I told you the story before?
Oh yeah. What the magazine capacity was.
Yeah.
It was not what the bullets were loaded.
Right. So let's say the magazine was 17 plus 1, right? He's 17 in the mag, 1 in the pipe. And he claimed he fired, I think, if memory serves, let's say 1 round. And I'm like, okay, so basic math, 18 minus 1, 17 rounds. And there was like 12, 11. And I'm like.
So now it looks like you're lying.
Right. Well, I'm like, did you unload the magazine after you got back to the office in the 7 hours that you've had this gun and it's not been secured? And his answer just, I mean, it was so ridiculous that it sounded true. He's like, our qualification course is set up that you fire like 2 magazines of 12 and 1 of 13 and then you get through it fast. And that's how we shoot it so that we don't have to stop and change mags or top magazines off and everything. And I've seen people do that in the FBI too. So I'm like, oh, that sounds true. But I'm like, so that's how you load your magazines to go to the street? He's like, yeah, that's what I'm used to. I'm like, oh, I don't know where to start.
There are so many firearms instructors watching this morning, Dr. Fuller.
Just all of them biting it. But
they're screaming at the screen right now.
And I guarantee you that you and I are not the only ones that have seen that. I promise you that others have seen that exact same thing.
Yeah.
And it's those training scars that we build into people that that aren't gun people. And that's what happened here. And so I said, look, we can explain this, but we're going to have to explain this. Right. I said, so you need to put that in your report. Okay. But now he's all pissed off at me. I'm like, be pissed off. Just don't be pissed off in prison. How's that?
Exactly.
So
now that's a great story, man. There's so much to that. And that could be its own show altogether because I won't say who, but a good friend of mine just wrote an anonymous article, and Greg Ellifers published it. It's well worthy of your time because this is a elite level guy who, a military elite level guy who, with multiple deployments with this unit, and now he is. Then he did some contracting, and now he is going to the police academy. And he writes a very good article about coming from where he's come from to now I'm just a guy in the police academy. What is it like? And the emphasis, he's like, there was nothing about this 1 week, 2 week, whatever it was, that had anything to do with teaching you the fundamentals of marksmanship or how to shoot, how to handle a gun in any way. It was how to prepare for the qualification course, the qualification test on Friday. That was it. And nothing else is and that speaks to exactly what you said. If the emphasis is only on passing the qualification test, then people are going to load magazines to whatever the qualification test is. They don't see it as something that I might save my life with, or my partner's life, or a citizen's life. It's just something, this thing here on my side helps me keep my job by passing a qualification test every 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is insane to me and you. It's insanity.
And it drove me bonkers because I was at the FBI Academy. Most of the viewers know I was taught at the Firearms Training Unit for 5 years. And I saw it there. We were training to the test. That's all we were doing. We were training to the test for the new agents. Now, for the older agents, a little different story, but not much different. And it drove me bonkers. So I'm like, and for those who have had the seminal experience of reading No Safe Alternative, they know that one of the things I harp on a lot is we're not training people to gunfight. We're training people to pass qualification courses in far too many cases. And look, there's a practical reason for doing that, right? The people at the range, especially the bosses, what are they evaluated on? Pass rates,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if people fail, the perception is they failed because you didn't do your job.
Right.
And a lot of times our own perception is that way. I mean, there were many times that I was out there to the line with people and talked them through qualification courses because I'm like, look, you suck at this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried my level best for months to fix you, and I've done the best I can, but you're not going to fail this test because I'm not going to fail at my job.
Right.
Which is the wrong attitude to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely had that attitude, and my boss had that attitude. And so he relentlessly cut out anything that didn't have to do with getting people through the test. Now, the test had a certain utility in that, you do need to be able to handle the firearm safely, and you do need to holster it and unholster it, clear it, and what have you. But anybody who thinks that range qualifications are the same as fighting with a gun at 2 a.m. in a pouring rain against a very determined adversary who's trying very hard to hold on to you with one hand and beat your brains out with a tire iron in the other,
That's right.
is not paying attention.
That's right. And
to teach to the test, I think that's fine initially, but that's not the goal.
Yeah, I would, you and I agree on 99% of the things, but this is the 1% that I don't think it's ever appropriate to teach to the test. Because, and I'm going to steal a good friend of mine who's a retired bureau guy. I don't think you know him. I've asked you about it before. Anyway,
we all know each other. Come on.
Well, I'll tell you offline, see if you do. But he has gotten a job as the head firearms guy for the post agency for the state. And he sent me all the docs that he's got this meeting coming up. I think they've got 17 academies within this state. And so he's trying to get them all on one page. And he is, he's saying, I don't want to hear about the qualification course. I know what it is. I'm changing it, by the way. So it's going to be X. But his point is, if you teach them to shoot, they'll be able to pass any qualification test. And I think you and I would agree with that. If I teach you how to shoot, give them anything you want, this guy's going to pass it. He may not score great on your little nuanced thing, but he will. I promise you, this guy will pass it. What do you think?
Absolutely true. And this is the point I've always made with our qualification courses. If a test, you design your curriculum and then you design a test to test the curriculum. You don't design a test and then design a curriculum to support the test.
Amen.
And I don't want to get too deep into the Doctor of Education thing here, but that's how tests work. Exactly how you say it. It's just like math, right? If I teach you to add, and I can give you any addition test and you'll be able to pass it. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If I teach you to swim, it doesn't matter how deep the water is. You can swim, right? Overcoming the mental, and anybody that's taught kids to swim knows, well, I can swim in the 4-foot pool. I can't swim in the 10-foot pool. I've had these conversations with my own children. Teach them to shoot and they'll shoot, right? And this is what drove me bonkers with the FBI Academy was we weren't teaching them the right things for the right reasons. And it's maddening because this isn't just an academic exercise, right? The handling and the social use of a firearm is very serious business. And the potential outcomes, whether you win, lose, or tie, are all potentially devastating. They're life-changing. The least
you could survive the gunfight, and because you did something inappropriate, right? You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, or you're going to be sued civilly and lose your house. Like you said, the outcome could span the entire pantheon of destruction of your life.
You can win the gunfight and be in a wheelchair the rest of your life.
Amen. That's right.
How do we defend victory, or how do we define victory?
Mhm.
So it's not just about I got the gun out fast and I shot the guy. It's I used cover, I called for help, I retreated, I advanced. There's a lot to the social use of a firearm that we just don't teach, and we should. We'll teach it real well to the SWAT guys, who in my mind are the last guys that are going to get to the scene, right? Who's going to be in the scene initially? That poor patrol officer who we don't give the training to.
Yeah, the SWAT team's the fifth responder or something like that. They're not the first. I love it. And I think Dr. Fuller, as you know, I have a hard out time right now, but can you read this full comment by Alan Kelly, and we'll kind of close with that, sir?
Okay. I can tell some stories of the excuses officers have when on the range. My usual saying is, if you train to win a gunfight, you will pass qualification. If you train to pass a qualification, you may not survive a gunfight. And the only caveat I would say on there is if the qualification is properly crafted.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a properly crafted qualification, you'll win. But if your qualification is like the ones that were very famous pre-California Highway Patrol shooting in Southern California, where you got to keep the range clean, so you fire your 6 rounds, empty your brass, put it in your pocket, load 6 more rounds, go back to work. If that's the kind of qualification course you've designed, then perhaps Mr. Kelly's saying would not be true. But outside of that, he's dead nuts on. He's absolutely right.
And the other thing, the other one, I see this, and I'm shocked at it, is they're still using those old targets from the 70s where the actual X-ring is near the navel. And it's a gradient going up. So like a high thoracic hit is like a 7. And I only know this because my brother is getting ready to go to the academy to do his job. I was telling you about in the green room, Dr. Fuller. And he's like, yeah, I want to practice the qualification. So let's go to the range. And he orders the targets that they're going to use. And I'm like, what the F is this? They're still using this? This thing was outdated 50 years ago. I'm like, what? The FBI has great targets or some other great targets out there, but my God. Anyway, I do have to run. Dr. Fuller, why don't you take us out, brother?
Well, as we often say here, Rich, the fight is coming. However you define that fight, be ready.